Welcome to Popped. Joining me are my co-hosts Ben Wilson and Tanya Holstrom. I'm their co-host Daniel Hendricks and the creator and founder of Popped. We are beyond thrilled to have a special guest joining us today.
Before we introduce her, I'd like to take a moment to ask you to click the like button on this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to our channel, and comment. All of those interactions help the YouTube algorithm to direct more traffic to our channel, and they help us gain momentum. That in turn allows us to bring you premium content, and it doesn't cost you anything except a little finger twitch.
Well, speaking of which, our guest today is known for her role on Stargate SG-1 as the Goa'uld system lord, Hathor. She is also known for her Instagram show, Hathor Hosts. Suanne has appeared in many series like Silk Stockings, Wings, Just Shoot Me, as well as films like A Castle for Christmas and The Princess Switch. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our...
Daniel?
Help Hathor take over Pop to rule the world.
Help, Hathor.
I'm delighted to see that my pheromones are still working all these centuries later.
Guys, I think your Zoom is set to pheromones on. Her breath has made you asleep because you're due. But I am no man. I will introduce her. First, I shall remotely shut down the pheromonal transmitter in Daniel's Zoom program. There we go. That might take a second. But in the meantime, welcome to Pop, Suanne.
Oh, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Where am I?
That was an excellent introduction. I absolutely loved that. And what I especially loved is that Tanya feels she might be immune. I think that by now Hathor's upped her game a bit. And,
oh no!
Oh dear, we'll have to watch out.
And no more breath that goes through the ether.
Oh, plug your nose, Tanya.
Goodness. Wow! Like Hathor 5.0. Oh my god!
She's gonna breathe that pink shit on you. You're done.
Better than an iPhone.
Well, I figured being stunned by your pheromones would be a good way to do this since it's ass early here, and
Yes.
Stunned is a good look for me.
I thought that was very, very good. Very good stunned acting, I have to say. I'm very impressed.
It was awful. Come on. Let's see. So I'm going to just go right into our little bit here about Stargate, because obviously we're doing a show on the 25th anniversary. We are a pop culture show. We don't just do one series. We do whatever we like. And we like Stargate quite a bit. So it's been 25 years. This is the 25th anniversary of the series. What goes through your mind when you hear that?
Well, firstly, I can't believe it's 25 years because it feels probably to me like it's about 10. I don't feel like, if I didn't have a calendar or a clock or a mirror, I would think that it was 10 years ago. What goes through my mind is that I am completely gobsmacked and slack-jawed at the fact that people are still so hungry for this show. And that Hathor still, that I get invited, I've just come back from doing a Comic-Con in Prague, that I'm still being asked to appear as this character for people and that people still dig her. And long may it continue. I'm very grateful and really, really thrilled and delighted to have been a part of this epic show. Just happiness is what goes through me. I'm like, because you never know as an actor. That's the thing. You get a job and you think, yeah, okay, it's great. It's work. It's money in the bank. And sometimes you're on a set and it works really well and you sort of vibe and gel with the people and you think this is going to be a fantastic series and it dies a death. And other times you just have no idea. You go in, you do your job, you go home, and then it becomes a thing. And you just never know. So I'm thrilled.
Well, you hit on something there that I find interesting, because there were a lot of guest stars on the show. And of the Goa'uld guest stars, the two that are probably remembered the most are Ball and Hathor. So that's got to be somewhat flattering.
Yeah, I mean, that it really is, considering particularly Dear Cliff had many, many, many appearances. and I think was in both the films, and I was only really in 3 episodes. I mean, really one. They kind of, let's say 2, and they kind of chopped them into 3. So yeah, I'm deeply, and I was asked actually this weekend by some of the fans. They said to me, "Why do you think this character is so popular?" And I'm like, I don't know. I'm delighted that she is, but I have no idea. I don't know what it was that made people respond in the way they have to Hathor. Partly, I think maybe it was because she was the first villain that kind of came in dressed not with 6 heads and, you know, reptilian scales, although that's what I wear to bed.
Nice.
I think it's got to be the perfect nails as they came out of the coffin, you know, the perfectly manicured nails.
Yes,
I mean,
I know.
That's a long time for those nails to look so good.
Right? Right, exactly. And I quite like that because I have in real life terrible nails, absolutely like they're always short. So I love that. I was quite like, I love that whole, that bit was one of my favorite bits to film, actually, uncomfortable as it was.
Yeah, we've got a fan question about that later, but I'll let one of my co-hosts actually get a word in edgewise here. Go ahead, guys.
Okay. So we are obviously in the 25th anniversary, and I know that we lost Don Davis, General Hammond of Texas, a while back. And I was wondering, because I know you got to work with him in at least one episode.
Yeah.
And could you maybe just talk a little bit about what he was like, and maybe some of your favorite memories of him when you got a chance to work with him?
I adored Don. Like from the moment I met him, he was a real mensch, you know, just down to earth, decent guy, funny, great to hang out with, fab on set. And I was really lucky. I think I've told this story on loads of interviews and things, so sorry if you've heard it before, but I was very lucky that when I filmed Stargate, they flew me in early for costume fittings and stuff. I was living in LA at the time. And so I was incredibly lucky that I could go. I went up, I think on the Thursday or Friday, had all my fittings, and then have the weekend free, and then only worked the following week for like 10 days or whatever it was. And that weekend, Chris Judge had a party on a Saturday night, and we all really bonded, profusely bonded. I mean, to the point that I still can't quite remember how I got home, but I do remember there was a lot of alcohol and a lot of laughing. But Don was there, and Amanda was there, and Michael was there, and you know, everybody. We just had a great time. And I think the thing with Don is that he was sort of like that. He was this kind of father figure. Well, that's kind of what I thought he was. I was like, he was this sort of big, full of largesse, welcoming father figure. And then we did a convention together in Germany, in this tiny little town called Blenheim. And I was like, yes, he's a father figure, but he's also the dude. I mean, he had the stories he told, because he'd worked with everyone. And he had the fans and the actors equally enthralled with his stories. I have a great memory of him and I, because it was freezing when we went, sitting around a fire, drinking scotch together, talking about everything under the sun, from politics to acting to getting a start in the industry. So very, very fond memories of the lovely, lovely Don S. Davis.
Wow. So is Chris Judge the party animal of the group?
Oh, yeah. I don't think he'll mind me saying that.
You'd never guess.
Yeah, it was a great party, really fantastic. But I think all of us, actually, at the time, there was a lot of fun on set and off set, but everybody took the work seriously, but not themselves. And I think that's something that is kind of partly why Stargate kind of stood the test of time, you know, particularly as I think, you know, the wonderful, wonderful late Cliff Simon and I were very, very dear friends. And I knew him from long before Stargate. And he and I would always say that. I was like, I think it's amazing because everybody would work really hard, but no one would be kind of sort of like a bit, you know, like, oh my God, we're sort of saving the world, what we're doing, we're actors. You know, there was none of that. It was like everybody had fun, but they took the work seriously too. So that's a rare balance, I think, to get in a show.
Yeah, Stargate was good at creating fun in the episodes as well.
Yeah.
I love a series that doesn't always take themselves too seriously, and they can interject those sort of humorous episodes as
Exactly.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, like they even trolled themselves,
Yeah.
which is, I think, brilliant. Like most shows don't have the guts to do that. So
Exactly.
What,
Exactly.
what was it? Wormhole Extreme? Was that the name of the
oh,
episode?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think so.
It's ridiculous. It was wonderful. If you could choose to play any role, and I mean any role, suddenly all the funding in the world, production, and the interest was there, and you could have any role at your fingertips, what would you like to do?
Oh my God, that is such a hard question to answer because there are about
Yes.
20 things that I can think of. Off
We
the top
throw
of
the hard balls here, man.
Well, two things. One, I'd love to do, there's a role I'd love to play on stage, which is a musical role, which is Rose in Gypsy. She's kind of this really pushy stage mother and gets to sing fantastic songs. Although I think I believe, the definitive version on stage in London pre-pandemic, and I'm not sure anyone could ever top that, but I'd love to give it a go. And then I think the other thing is I would definitely set up a company and develop my own work, which I would obviously also star in. But I'm very keen at the moment in my life to do something. I'm desperate to like play a detective. I'm absolutely gagging to play some sort of a detective and in some, in a detective show or series or something. So I think I would definitely do something along those lines, create a show or be in something. I'd love to be in a big splashy fantasy. I mean, I've been watching both House of Dragon and also The Lord of the Rings, and I was like, I think Sauron needs a kind of evil twin sister or aunt or haggard
Right.
crone. I don't know. I'd go for any of it.
Do you hear that, casting agents? Get on it.
Yeah. So I think that's actually would be my first prize job.
All right, cool. Ben, hey, you got anything you want to throw out there?
One thing that I'm wondering right now is the role of Hathor was so very remembered and recognizable. How often do you get people just walking by, recognizing you and stopping and saying, "Oh my goodness, it's you, hello"? But the thing that I'm most curious about is when someone recognizes you and gets your attention and says hi, do they most often want to just speak with you, the person, or are they hoping that you'll do a bit of Hathor for them?
With Hathor, definitely they're always hoping for a bit of Hathor. It depends. If they're men, usually they definitely want a bit of Hathor. If they're women, there's two reactions. They either completely are like, yes, I loved you. You were a strong, badass bitch. I love that. Or they're like, you're terrible. You stole my man and I hate you.
Oh, no.
Not for real, though. Not for real.
Okay.
Generally, people have been incredible. I don't get recognized that much anymore for Hathor. When I speak, people go kind of, oh. I think social media has been an immensely powerful way of reaching people and connecting with people. So definitely more people now know I was Hathor than sort of pre-internet, I guess, or pre-social media kind of taking off.
Right.
But I usually get recognized for one of two things. It's either for Mrs. Donatelli and the Princess Switch. My husband and I were in Paris 2 years ago, and we were sitting in this little bakery that everybody had said we had to go and try. And there was a young girl kind of writing, I think in her journal or something, or writing letters to her family. And she looked up and did one of those, which was like, and I knew, I was like, it's one of the two, and it was Mrs. Donatelli.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah.
That is excellent. So you have a really distinctive voice, and I know, and that's when I know you said that people recognize you sometimes as Hathor through your voice, and I know you do a lot of like voiceover work, and I noticed that you had done voices for video games. And I've noticed that a lot of actors that I really enjoy, when I look up their filmography, they've also done voices for video games. And I'm so curious about like the process of that.
Yeah.
Do you just get a script? Do you get the inside scoop on the game? Tell me how.
Hail. The answer about getting the inside scoop is hail to the no. They are so secretive now with games because they've become so protected, I guess. So when you get the job, you have to sign. Well, in fact, even before you get the job, when you audition for a game, you have to sign an NDA. And then I've just finished recording on a game that's going to be coming out next year. And sometimes with a game, when you audition, it's really difficult because sometimes they'll send you a sketch and say, that's the person you'll be playing. They'll give you the characteristics of the voice or the personality, but nothing else. So, and then sometimes for the audition, they'll take lines out of, they'll give you maybe they want to hear you being really formidable, and then they want to hear you being really emotional. So they won't always make sense, and that's quite difficult. When you get the job, they will usually send you whatever you're recording that day, the night before, the night or the day before. And again, it's all like with your name splashed across the page. So like if it were to reach the internet, everybody would know who released it. But I have loved it because for me, it's been, I have always used my voice and done character voices and accents, and I didn't really think it was a profession. I didn't think I would be able to make it a job. And there's a fantastic company. They're in LA, in London. They've just about to open a branch in Paris, and they're called Side. And Side and a company called Liquid Violet, both outstanding companies, pretty much do all the voice production in this country. But they work worldwide. And that's the great thing about voice work, that you can play a crone, 182-year-old witch who lives in the ice, or a 10-year-old boy, or a zombie, or, so I love that you get given a drawing. And then usually it depends on the developer of the game. So with Dying Light 2, what they did is they showed me Sophie, and I originally started off just doing her. And that was quite a lot. She had quite a lot of stuff. And then just as I was about to finish her, they said to me, can you do an English accent? Because they thought I was American. And I said, yeah. And so then I played another character. And then they said, could you try this character? And I did this. And so it just ended up, and I think in the end, I think I'm about between 12 and 17 voices in the game now.
Wow, that's so cool.
So it's really cool. And it's quite fun when, I mean, I haven't played it, but I've seen some of the stuff on YouTube. And I showed a friend of mine the other day. She's like, that's not you. And she knows me really well. She said, that's not you. I said, that's me. That's me. So that was good. That's kind of thrilling when that happens, But yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. There's a game, I've done a very small bit in it, 2 small bits, but that's coming out now, which is it's Supermassive Games. It's called The Devil in Me, and it's part of their anthology series. And I think it looks scary as hell, but that was quite fun to be a part of. And then next year, I've got a nice one coming out, which I obviously can't say what that is yet.
Ooh, secret project.
Terrific.
Ooh.
We'll have to have another podcast catch up then.
Yes, absolutely. Because we are a pop culture podcast, we like to do these episodes where we have these top 5 lists. And first off, what genre do you like most for series or for films, if you were to pick a genre?
Again, difficult question to answer, Daniel. You've thrown me here with all the
Here I go.
Because basically, I am a television and film junkie. I watch a lot of TV.
You fit in well here.
Good. Yeah, probably not as much as you guys, but
Hey, wait a minute.
I absolutely love for series. I love, well, as I said, some of the fantasy stuff. I love any of those kind of Nordic sort of dramas that, the detective Nordic things. I love a good comedy. I was like The Big Bang Theory. We just recently rewatched the whole thing from start to finish. The Sopranos, one of the best series ever. I love a series I can kind of get my teeth into and follow everyone's journey from the beginning to the end. So love that. Films, same sort of thing. I have quite an eclectic taste. I mean, definitely in my top 5 is Spinal Tap, for sure. And probably Young Frankenstein, because it still makes me laugh.
Yeah.
It's very hard. It's very hard then, because then I start thinking about like Godfathers, and it's very difficult. I don't know. I need like a week to compile the top 5, but Spinal Tap would be in there for sure.
To be fair, I mean, we usually have a week to come up with ours. It's difficult off the cuff, but
Okay.
yeah, you put in a couple of good ones there.
TBC. To be continued.
Yay. All right. Well, the next time we'll
exactly.
have a top 5 list going. I've got some fan questions here. I know we've got limited time, so I'd like to get these in because people wrote into us, and they probably want to hear their name and your acknowledgement of them somehow. So
sure.
We're going to start with Jeanette Griffin in Sacramento, California. She's on our Facebook page, and she said, "What was laying in the sarcophagus like? Did you have snacks or crossword puzzles to do during takes?"
Hi, Jeanette. Well, don't you know that there's a jacuzzi and a hot tub in the back, actually? Well, jacuzzi and a hot tub are the same thing, aren't they? Jacuzzi and a sauna in the left wing of the sarcophagus, because it's a bit like the Doctor Who phone book. It just, you go inside and it's huge. No, they were very kind, and they just made sure that I had lots of water and that I wasn't in there that long. The more challenging thing, and I've talked about this quite a bit, is that the dress was unbelievably difficult to move in, because they basically, I'm going to use my doll to demonstrate, because she's dressed in You see, this is a show and tell, kids. So this bit of the dress was completely boned down the sides here. For anyone who doesn't know what that means, it means it's got literally that shafts of boning that go down, straight down. It makes it, they used to use them for corsets in the old days, and it makes sitting virtually impossible, breathing practically impossible, which I think is probably why women in the days of yore used to talk like this, because they were all frantically trying to get oxygen. So I couldn't sit down in between takes, so they literally would have this like a trolley that they'd wheel on, that like there's things that you put under when you're moving furniture, there's like things that you move boxes with.
A dolly,
exactly. And I would lean against the dolly like this between takes to rest, just to take like the pressure off my body. Wow. So actually getting into the sarcophagus was really challenging, because I couldn't really bend in half. And that opening scene of coming up, if you look at it really closely, you can see how rigid I am. And it's partly because the boning is so strong in the dress that I was like, I could barely go down, like lie flat. So they closed the lid and I was like hovering, and then would kind of just have to, it's very good for the stomach muscles. So the dress was far more challenging than being inside the black box.
Yikes. Well, there's some insight. Oh my God. Yeah,
I'd
never guess. I would never guess, because it's not something you pay attention to when you're watching the show. You're just looking at what's the action, what's happening. Exactly. But now when I rewatch that, I will be paying attention. Yeah.
And actually, when I'm coming down the stairs, when she first meets the team, I remember the director saying to me, he's like, I'd really love it. Like, we want to, she has to make like this fantastic entrance. So like, you've got to come in and you've got to be like really cool. And, you're a goddess. So like, you don't look at the floor or anything, just like, almost like you're drifting in, like you're floating in. And I was like, okay. Thinking, has he met me? Like if there's a step to fall down, I will.
Oh dear.
By floating, you mean tumble, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. And I just remember kind of thinking, and then the bottom of the dress, again, the demonstration, this part was very long, very long. So I was so
boy.
terrified that I was going to like stand on the skirt and then just tumble down the stairs, but somehow I didn't. And I think we only did 2 takes of that, and I was so relieved after that. I was like,
Oof. I'm going to give you, let's see, we got Lane Meyer. Oh. So we have a guy who writes in with pseudonyms all the time, and he always picks different John Cusack characters. So before he was Lane Dobler, apparently now he's Lane Meyer in Greendale, California, who wrote, who of the cast was the biggest prankster on the SG-1 set?
well, hello, Lane, aka John Cusack lover. I love John Cusack, by the way. Who was the biggest prankster? I would say it was a combination of Rick and, yeah, probably Rick actually, because he would sort of set the tone, and then because Richard would be kind of, I mean, he's a great practical joker. Michael quite likes a laugh and a practical joke. Chris Judge is got a naughty sense of humor, so he would kind of also have a bit of a laugh. They would do things like, there was lots of scenes when obviously the pink mist had to be, you know, in those days the CGI wasn't quite as good as it is today, so we'd have to do all these things where I would have to be very seductive and sort of lean forward, and then every time either somebody, usually Judge, would be in the back going either that, or Rick would be like, whoa, who had onions for lunch? Come on, you know, and stuff like that. But I got my own back, because I like a practical joke too. So when Richard was in the sarcophagus, we did one take where everybody hid from him, and I just said, I got everybody on board, like the crew, everyone, we all went and hid. And then he was like, hey guys, what's happening? And he kind of climbed out of the thing. He's like, where is him? And we were like, yeah, I got that.
Oh, nice.
Brilliant. I love it. And he seems like the guy that would be the practical joker. I mean, obviously the character comes across that way anyway. So I guess it's not a big stretch to go from character to real life.
Exactly.
Let's see, we got Greta Schroeder from Frankfurt, Germany, who asks, do you have any funny or weird fan stories?
Oh, yes, quite a few. Guten Tag, Greta, was it?
Greta Schroeder.
Greta, okay. Guten Tag, or Guten Abend, or Guten Morgen in your case, Greta. Funny fan stories. I mean, I've not, thankfully, had anything like terrifying or anything like that, but I've had a few. I had one quite funny thing, which wasn't connected to Stargate actually, but when I was filming, I mean, it is connected to Stargate, but it's not about Stargate. When I was filming in Vancouver at the time, the X-Files were also filming in Vancouver, and one evening I got into the lift, the elevator, and this woman got in and did one of those things where she sort of, you know, I said, oh, what floor would you like? And she was like, oh, whatever it was. And she pressed the button and then kind of did a double take and obviously thought I was someone else. And she was like, oh my God. And finally, as she got out, she's like, I just have to tell you, I am an enormous fan. I love your work, but David Duchovny, not so much. I don't care for him. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for the unsolicited opinion.
Channeling my Gillian Anderson. So, yeah, I've had sort of weird interactions like that. And then just sort of very keen fans. I had one fan in Vancouver who had a broken leg and a really, like, from his hip right down. He obviously, I think he had a skiing accident at Whistler or something. And he, in front of the whole, we were starting to board. And in front of everybody, he like wheeled right up to me and was like, I'm not getting on the plane until you sign my leg. But he wanted like loads of stuff written, like Neil the goddess and I am the mother of all gods. And the entire plane was like, and of course it was one of those flights where I was in like sweats, no makeup. And I was like, oh God. And I could just see the air hostess kind of going, mm-hmm. she's not famous. Look at her. What is that? That was one. But anyway, generally, Stargate fans and sci-fi fans are the coolest, loveliest, most welcoming fandom in the world. I will say that.
Yeah.
Awesome. The next question actually is along those lines. Sorsha Joyce in Los Angeles, California asks, will you be appearing at any conventions? I'm guessing she means next year because this year is almost up.
Yeah.
If so, will any be in the Los Angeles or Southern California area?
Oh, Saoirse, I wish I could say yes. I don't, you know, I have not really done anything in LA. I've only done one American convention, and that was Dragon Con in Atlanta, which was fantastic. So the best way to get me to come to a convention is to ask the organizers. You guys have to petition because they ask, I think, what people want to see, you know, whoever they want to see. So that's the best way. At the moment, I am working in a show in London until the end of May next year. So I won't be doing any traveling at all until the production is over.
Now you have several different social media things like Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all that. Where's the best place for people to get up-to-date news on you? If you want to find out, oh, you're going to be at a convention or you've got this production in place.
Definitely Twitter. I'm probably there the most, but I always try, if I'm appearing in anything, whether it's a show or a movie or on a series or something, I'll always put it on. I'm only on 3 things, so it's Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and I'll always put it on all 3. So you can't escape.
I've only got one question left from fans. I know actually had quite a few. I'm really shocked, just because normally we don't get that many people write in, but apparently you're pretty popular. So it's Brian Gabler or Gabler. I'm not certain. Sorry, Brian, from Colorado. He's from Loveland, Colorado. Asks if you could have the power like Hathor had in real life, like when you blow that pink stuff on men and they bend to your will. Would you want it? What would be the first thing you did with it? Sorry, I read that terribly.
Brian, was it?
Brian Gabler or Gabler.
Yeah. So my answer, Brian, is who's to say I don't have the power?
Oh.
No. I couldn't resist going a Ben Hathor. I don't think I'd want to, well, it depends. If I was villainous and wanting to bend the world to my will, then yes, I would quite like to have those powers. I think though, and I've said this quite a bit, like, because there's big rumors about Stargate coming back, which would be fantastic if it did. And I would love to be a part of it in any shape or form. But I get asked quite a lot by fans, you know, like, would I want Hathor to come back? And I was like, yeah, but I think she can't come back in the same way. I think if the character were to come back and I were to play it, or if it was to be continued, she has to have learned a thing or two in the last millennia, you know. She can't just be using the same tired old tricks, trodden out the pink mist. And I think things have moved on. But yeah, I'd quite like to have a way to convince people to do what I'd like them to do. I've been trying it on my husband for years. I'm still no better at it.
Hey, Tanya, I know you had some more questions there. Did you have something else you wanted to pop up here?
I do. So this is a non-Stargate question. I was looking you up on Wikipedia, on the wiki, and it had said that you had hosted a travel show called Bon Voyage.
Yes.
My question is, what was the favorite place of yours that you've been to? And do you have a bucket list travel place that you want to get to?
I do. I have several. I love, love, love travel. I was really lucky with Bon Voyage because I was 21 and 22 when we did it. I had no clue about luxury travel and going to far-flung places. And, you know, we got to stay at the Cipriani Hotel in Venice, which is one of the most exquisite hotels in the world, the George Cinq in Paris. We did so many different things. We also traveled extensively in Southern Africa and Africa, which is exquisitely beautiful, but in a completely different way to a city visit. We had an amazing experience on these tiny little islands called the Bom Bom Islands, just off the Gulf of Guinea. And they were opening a deep sea fishing resort there. And we were the first, well, it hadn't opened yet. We went to film there before they'd opened. So that was amazing. I got to go on the Blue Train, which was amazing, which is an institutional train in South Africa, and the Orient Express, which, you know, what an iconic train.
Yes.
So there were these experiences that I don't think I fully appreciated or valued at the time. Not that I was ungrateful, but I don't think I had any idea how amazing what I was actually doing, how amazing it was. Whereas now I'm like, oh my God, take me back. When I first met my husband, I said to him, let's go and have, maybe we could stay at the George Cinq in Paris, or go and have drinks and a meal. And we both went and we were like, we'll just have a drink in the bar. And on my bucket list, I really want to go to Japan. I've never been to Japan. I would love to do that. I would love to go back to Hawaii. I went to Hawaii when I was 13, and it was so beautiful. And then I would love to see the Northern Lights. So, either in Norway or just something like that. Oh, there's so many. When I start, again, it's a bit like the movies. I'm like, oh, and then I want to go there, and I want to go there, I want to do this. But definitely Japan. I think that's probably number one bucket list.
Nice.
Very cool. Yeah, you mentioned your husband, and in coming to this show, I always try to learn a little bit about people before I talk to them, so I know what I'm saying and we can interact.
Yeah.
You've mentioned that he's a baker and that you worked in his shop for a little while. I'm curious, did you ever have the idea to do a little promotion? I kind of came up with here. And basically he creates these little the spawn, Hathor spawn. You could do a promotion. No, maybe not. That might not be the best ad campaign, but
we have definitely, people have written to me and suggested it, but we haven't done it yet. But maybe one year for Halloween it could be quite fun, because we did do
would be a good
few years ago, like we had sort of dead man fingers, which were kind of like little bits of rolls, painted with sausages in them that look like fingers. And Halloween isn't as big in the UK as it is in the States, although it's getting big. So maybe one year we'll do, if Stargate ever comes back, or if Hathor's ever revived, then definitely we'll cash in.
Beautiful. Tanya, you got anything?
Yes. So you had mentioned, what are you working on now? You said that you were working on a production.
Yeah. So I've just finished something for Netflix, which is coming out next year. I can't say what that is yet. And then I start rehearsals for a show called The Greatest Night of the Jazz Age. And it's going to be, well, sort of what it says on the tin, really. It's going to be that. And it's highlighting specifically one night in this woman's life. And it's basically about a woman called Belle Livingston, who I get to play, who was a real person. If you Google Belle Livingston, you'll see she was the sort of doyenne of the Prohibition clubs. She opened a very, very famous club in Manhattan called the 54th Street Country Club. And because it was so in demand, like Manhattan came to a standstill on the night that it opened, and everyone was there, from Al Capone to the King of England. She was just a force of nature. I mean, born in Kansas, fled to go and live in Paris, had affairs with extraordinary people, was like the original it girl and kind of influencer, but with real balls and gusto, great storyteller, fearless, funny. And I, luckily enough, get to bring her to life and get to play her. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That is so awesome. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So anyone in London, do come and see us. It's called The Greatest Night of the Jazz Age.
Wish I was in London.
Yeah.
Well, there's still time. There's still time, Daniel.
Yeah, it's one of the few places over there that I haven't gotten to yet that I want to.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
been to Ireland, been to, most of a good portion of Europe now, but London. Oh, I just want to see the Sherlock Holmes Museum so badly.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, you'll have to come and then see the show, see the museum, and then come and say hi to us afterwards.
Come by for a scone.
Definitely. A scone, a scone.
A scone? Oh, all right.
It's all right. So there's a big debate in this country too, whether it's scone or scone, but I say scone.
You guys, I just got schooled by Hathor.
Right.
We're huge Babylon 5 fans as well. And I noticed one of your guests on your show was Claudia Christian.
Yeah.
Very awesome. Amongst your guests, I mean, you've had quite a few on there. Any standouts from the shows that people, if they're going to look up Hathor Hosts, that, oh, this is one you got to watch?
Yeah. Wow. Just to talk about Claudia for a minute, actually, she and I did a British sci-fi together called Star Hike with a Y, which was quite an experience. But she is so great and such a lovely woman. And that, our friendship was kind of formed then. And then weirdly, before I met her, I did a game for Babylon 5 where I played a high Nan priestess. So I had the full lizard makeup, the red eyes. And then the game, this is like in the 90s. And I remember like when I told people, they were like, why is it not in your IMDb? And that I was like, I think because it never got made.
It never got released.
During Hathor Hosts, when I was researching her, I was like, let me just look up what happened to it. And sure enough, it never got released. But if it ever does, look out for the large lizard lady.
Was it called I Found Her? Babylon 5, I Found Her, something like that?
Thanks God, I don't know. I mean, it was 150 years ago. I can't remember, but yeah.
Just jump back in the sarcophagus, she'll come to you.
Yeah, exactly. So standout guests. God, it was really amazing. Well, I feel very, very lucky to have had Cliff on the show twice, particularly as it was one of the last interviews that he did. And because we are friends. So people, I think, got to see a side of him that people don't often get to see. My big regret is that the sound apparently on that recording was terrible because we were still on Instagram. And it took me months to figure out or to find out that Instagram basically just, can I swear on here?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Instagram fucks with the algorithm and the sound. And so what you think you're getting when you're doing it live, when it sounded great, whatever they use to completely messes stuff up, which is why so often things are out of sync. And I just, anyway. A very, very lovely, kind fan painstakingly restored the sound. And I was about to release it when he died. And it didn't seem like the right time to do it, but maybe next year, I don't want anyone to think I'm capitalizing on his passing. But so I'm so happy we got to do that. And I'm really happy that I got Peter Williams on the show because he was very reluctant to do it. He was a bit like, oh, I don't know. I'm still determined to get Richard on the show. Chris Judge and I keep trying to do it, but his schedule's crazy now because he's got the Marvel thing. I thought David Hewlett's interview was amazing. He was so frank about his life and his career. And I really loved the time I spent with Amanda both times. She, at the end of the series, she interviewed me, which was great. Terrell was really interesting. I mean, there's so many. Paul McGillian was fantastic. Tanya Amandala. The list goes on. I was so lucky that so many people said yes and were so gracious with their time.
Yeah, wonderful. So those are a couple of names. If you're interested in looking up Hathor Hosts, that's where you want to check those guests, check those episodes, and there you go. My other question on it is that I noticed that Hathor Hosts, you had talked about Instagram. Obviously, I had thought about using Instagram for a while, but now I'm second guessing that.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't.
It's evolved quite a bit. And can you take us through the process of how it went from, what looks like I'm having trouble getting my guest onto the show to bells and whistles and people being able to comment in real time? It's impressive. I saw that and I was like, oh wow, she's coming on our little show.
Yeah. Well, we were as well. I was like, man, we've grown up. So yeah, again, it's one of those amazing things. It's been such a lovely natural progression for the show. So the whole way the show was born, like I didn't kind of go, I'm going to create a podcast. What happened was, like everyone else in 2020, when the world shut down, all of us found ourselves without work at home.
Mm-hmm.
And one evening, because it was right at the kind of peak mania for Instagram lives, everyone was doing a live. And I watched an interview with somebody that I admire. And the interviewer was so bloody terrible that I was like, what? He was so shit. And I just thought, I cannot believe that you've wasted this opportunity interviewing this actor. And the same thing, their sound kept freezing. And I was just like, this is piss poor.
We were brand new at the time. I'm so sorry.
Yes, the interviewer shall remain nameless. But that night I went to bed and I suddenly thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to write to everyone and I'm going to do a set of interviews and talk to actors about their lives and their careers. I didn't actually think it through very well or too much. And I then was really ballsy and kind of wrote to anyone I've ever met and said, I'm going to do this thing. Think Graham Norton, but sort of with a sci-fi slant, in the luxury of your own home. Basically going to spend an hour chatting to you about your life and your career. And I'm going to make you look, and you're amazing anyway. But so like, it's not going to be a sabotage. I was very clear up front. I was like, there's zero money. So, if you don't want to do it, I totally understand. But I'd love you to come on the show. And then everyone said yes. And I was like, oh God.
It's amazing, right?
And it was extraordinary, one after the other. And then I was like, oh my God, okay. And then I thought it would be really great on Instagram because, of course, I hadn't thought about any of the technical issues. I was shocked to discover how many actors didn't know how to work their phones. I was like, guys, aren't you doing updates on your phones? The other problem with Instagram is, so you're on your phone, right? You've got it all set up, but now you can't reach the person. So they're emailing me frantically and texting me, but I have to go out the Instagram live to
can't get on.
And they're like, I can't get on. I don't know how. Exactly. They're like, I can't figure it out. So that became an absolute nightmare because every time before a show, I'd be like, oh God, oh God. And then I'd tell people to email me and I'd be frantically checking the emails, but you can't really check the email when you're online. So that was a disaster. And then I think after the David Blue one, which was probably the most technical, spectacular car crash, and God love David, he was a star because he has a Twitch channel. And eventually we tried 4 times. We eventually switched channels. Eventually in the end, I'm literally holding my laptop in my lounge going, let me just find, it was ridiculous. And at that time, the guy who is now my producer was hosting a series of interview series where he was just doing the behind the scenes stuff for a South African channel that I was a guest on as South Africans living abroad and doing their thing. And I watched their setup and I was like, damn. And he then sent me a text afterwards. He said, listen, anytime, if you want to work with me, I would love to be involved. And I was like, well, what would it involve? And he said, well, I use this thing called StreamYard and, we are not affiliated. I should say, this is not a paid advertisement, but it's been fantastic. And that's sort of how it grew. And then a fan of Hathor and Hathor Hosts and certainly of Stargate, a wonderful German lady called Catherine Sigmund. She's very sussed with the whole IT stuff. She wrote to me and said, I'd very happily be the kind of fan liaison and help you get set up on YouTube. So she did all that. Oh. I then opened it up to people and said, would you guys come and watch this on YouTube? And I think we need a theme song. And then people just went mad. People started designing posters and it was like this wonderful wave. People just took it, embraced the whole process and the show. And I'm so grateful for that. And actually Dana, this wonderful, wonderful woman from the Czech Republic, designed all the posters and all of this in her own time for free. No one got paid. No one, I didn't ask anyone to do this and no one sort of expected anything. But that's sort of how it grew. And then I had a background in television production and hosting. So I had an idea of how I wanted the show to be. I was like, I don't want it to look like some sort of Mickey Mouse bullshit, like, oh, and then the sound goes, I hate that. And although some fans were like, we loved it because there was always a drama, I didn't want that. I wanted it to be, because I'd put so much work into researching people's lives. I mean, you guys know what it takes to produce a show. It's a lot of work. And at one stage I was doing an interview a week. And so it took me 6-7 days to do the research, to get it together, to write the questions. Then we would do like a rehearsal just for us, like a technical rehearsal. Then sometimes guests get the time zone wrong.
Yeah.
Or they don't, you know. So I eventually started, but all the stuff you learn as you go, I eventually had like a kind of format how I would send the invite saying, this is the Zoom, it's like Zoom, you just click here and then highlight that in red, you know, the time you need to be there, highlighted in red. And I would leave out our time zone and that, because I think people just get overwhelmed.
Confused. Yeah.
Yeah. And that seemed to work a treat. And then so far, so good. So once we had the system, and then Drew was the one, really, my wonderful producer, who just said, well, I can add in this graphic. And at first I was like, no, don't make it too much. And then I saw it and I was like, oh my God, I love it. Like, yeah, more, you know. But like all the writing and everything, that's all just people creating, and music, and then the art, that was all. The opening titles was a girl who wrote to me and said, I've done a video, I'd love to do it. And the only thing I asked her, I said, there's a lot of Stargate stuff in there. I don't know if we're allowed to use all of that. So I think I'd rather have more stuff of pictures of me. And she then went to the internet and drew stuff, and that was that. So it was, in a way, you know, I didn't have to do that much, and I'm so grateful. So it's like the fans show as well. It's not just mine.
Wonderful.
That is excellent.
That's a delight.
You know, it's interesting because this show was also born out of the pandemic. I mean, I work a full-time job, and I'm a musician as well. And I was starting a band to perform all these casinos and all these things because I just needed the creative outlet.
Yeah.
The practices in, the pandemic hit. And I, as a creative person, I'm sitting there at my job, which I love my job, but I build things all day, right? And I had earbuds in, and I'm listening to podcasts and thinking, wow, that sounds like that'd be fun to do. I wonder how difficult that is. What would I do? What do I like? Oh, I like movies and television series. You know? Yeah.
And there you
raised
go.
by a television. I was raised by a television named Larry.
But I think that's so great because, you know, so many people talk about it and don't actually do it. And you guys have done it. And like any show, you know, there's always there's some episodes that are more successful than others for whatever reason. Sometimes it's to do with a guest that people respond to more than another guest, or other times it's endless technical woes. Like, you know, the shows where I had major technical problems, people switched off. You also learn a lot about oh God, hello, we've just gone up there. We turn that down. You also learn a lot about, I think, how people operate today, because I was quite shocked to see how short people's attention spans were. You know, like people would join the chat and then like literally 30 seconds later, they're like, oh, I'm out of here. And it's a bit like somebody getting up and walking out in the middle of your set. You know, I was like, you think you're fucking going? Sit down.
Yes.
And so I quite like, with the current format that we have for our show, I can't quite see that. I can see that there's people watching in real time. And that's why it's really helpful having Catherine answer the questions, because I'm focusing on the interview and my guest. I can see in the bottom of my screen the producers, and if anything catastrophic happens, you know, if we need to restart or whatever, and I'm aware, I can see the chain of questions going down, like the little feed, but I'm not actually reading them and seeing who's leaving and who's, until afterwards I read everything.
Well, next, we're almost at the end of our second season. Surprisingly, we got all the way to end of the second season. Next year, we'll when we embark on the new season, we would love to have you back as a guest host if you'd want.
Oh, I'd love to.
I'll send you a list of the films and series we'll review, and you can pick and choose what you like, and you know, just pop on and be like, hey, this is what I think. All right, bye guys.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be great.
I'm out.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. And I mean, I think you'd also up our game a little bit because you're really good at what you're doing. So.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, you're pretty awesome.
So you had roughly about an hour. I think we're almost at that mark there. And I think I've gone through everything I've got. Does anybody else have anything that you want to ask? Or
I had one minor question. You mentioned that you would really like to play a detective.
Mm.
What detectives have you admired that make you feel like that would be a fun thing to do? What show or movie detectives have you enjoyed?
Mm.
Good
Oh,
pick.
everything from like Columbo to there's a series. I don't know if you guys. I don't actually know if it's on Netflix. I think it might be. It was originally a BBC series with Gillian Anderson called The Fall. Did you guys see it ever?
I
Doesn't
think I've
sound familiar to
heard of
me.
it once ever, but I know I
So
haven't
it's
seen it.
really good with Jamie Dornan before he became kind of as famous as he is from the what is that dreadful sex film? What is that awful book that what was the film that made him? I mean, obviously I didn't read it. That
Oh, was
that
it the 50 Shades?
Great, that's it. 50. I was like 50 something.
Oh, that one.
50 Shades of Grey, which I have to say, I mean, look, I haven't actually read it, so this is probably being unfair, but I read 2 pages of it and I was like, this is so badly written. I can't read this. Like,
Oh,
really,
dear.
I don't actually care. I'm like, um,
Couldn't even get to
anyway,
the first whip crack.
I didn't even get that far. I was like, the grammar is not good. This is not a good book. I was like, I'm not wasting my time reading this. And I've never actually seen the films, so I don't know if the films are any better. Maybe they are. But
don't know.
before he became famous for those films, Jamie Dornan was in this thing with Gillian Anderson called The Fall. If you haven't watched it, it's amazing. He plays a serial killer and she is a detective and she's so good. And I think I love the idea of playing somebody who is maybe quite conflicted in their home life, you know, who's possibly struggling with something quite dark and hideous internally, and then having to deal with this other thing. I mean, I love all, it's terrible. I love all that. I always joke with my husband who watches a lot of sci-fi and a lot of films where there's dialogue like, kill them all.
Exterminate.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, die, you motherfucker, die. So, which I did quite like getting to say in Dying Light 2, quite nice. Like a badass. I'd quite love to do an action film as well. I mean, that's never going to happen, but you know, a girl can dream. But
Never say never.
that's true, I guess. If Judi Dench could be in the Chronicles of Riddick, then hey, you know, I mean, but I love quite sort of like not murder mysteries, but like those dark sort of quite scary things. Weirdly, I don't like being scared, but I like the kind of cat and mouse thing between detective and killer, that sort of thing. I find that fascinating.
Well,
Wonderful. Thank
Angela
you.
Lansbury left a huge hole, so they've got to fill that somehow.
Exactly. Oh God, maybe Mrs. Donatelli could open a detective series, a detective agency.
Brilliant. We want to thank you for joining us here today. You've been amazing, and our gratitude is this big. Can you see my arms? I don't.
I can't. I don't want to kneel before you go there.
Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you next year when we do another season. And anything you need from us, we're an email away. And
fantastic.
Anything else, guys?
Thank you so much for having me, you guys. It's been an absolute blast. A pleasure to talk to you, and especially thank you for getting up so early and doing it so early on your end. I appreciate that.
We love ass early.
Awesome.
As long as there's coffee, we're good.
Oh, there you go.
Exactly. Yes. Look, it's disappearing.
Your power is making my
the power
of That was awesome. What a great guest.
Yes. Excellent.
It was fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to have her back as a guest host. I wonder what.
Yeah, that'll be a blast.
I wonder what film, series, or whatever she'll choose. I guess we have to get that list together for next season.
We probably should do that.
All right. Well, in the interim, those who are watching, please click like and subscribe to our channel. Comment and discuss. It helps the YouTube algorithm drive traffic to our show. And that way, if you do that, we can bring you more guests like Suanne.
You can also check us out on poppedpodcast.com, where you can learn about us and listen to all of our past episodes.
Woohoo!
Woo!
You can also support this podcast and buy swag in our online shop.
Woohoo!
You can like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Oh yeah, it's my turn, isn't it? Write us emails. You can do that from our poppedpodcast.com website. We're so well rehearsed.
It's a mouthful. It's easier to type than to say.
It is. Please write us and tell us about a show we've reviewed or something that you'd like us to talk about in an upcoming episode. And go to Apple Podcasts, Audible, or Spotify. Spotify, you can only leave a rating, but on Audible and Apple Podcasts, you can actually leave a review. And we'd love to see your review. 5 stars. 5 stars. And I mean, say whatever you want to us. You know, well, yeah, say whatever. We'll get a good laugh out of it. And let's get. We're going to stick the videos up on our website as well soon, so you can also watch Popped there. We're getting used to this whole video thing, as you can tell. I think I'm going to put some of the old videos on as well, guys. The other interviews we've done with celebrities, based off of, it's going to happen slowly. It's going to go off of how much time I have available, which we know in the next couple months is going to be not much.
A bit limited.
Bit limited.
It's okay. You should put up the Christmas top 5 for Christmas.
Christmas. Quithmas.
Christmas.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll do that. And I've actually written Diane about coming back on too. She was super busy for the rest of this year, but maybe next year.
Oh, fun.
That could
Third
be-
season's
That
going to be a
would
blast.
Fantastic.
It will. We'll be more prepared. At least we're saying we'll be more prepared. But thank you everybody for listening. And we hope you enjoyed our 2 interviews from Stargate SG-1. And we've got a lot more ahead of us. See you soon.